There are a lot of things we take for granted, like the air we breathe and the sun we bathe in, like the raindrops on top of our heads and like the wind touching our face. What if one day these were taken from us? We got a preview of that day recently. Severe droughts took the rain away. Extreme heat made us hide from the sun, while COVID took away our right to breathe fresh air. Without the fresh air, you have to close your eyes to remember how it felt to be touched by Mother Nature's gentle hand with a stroke of the wind. Yesterday, on September the 6th, 2022, marked the first day that people in California received warnings of possible rolling blackouts. If that happens, we will not be able to hide inside our little shelters to escape the heat. No power? How far does that roll us back? The 19th century? Well, although we avoided a blackout yesterday, it does not mean it will not happen again. You can buy a generator if you can afford $6 a gallon for gas. Not only power, just yesterday, Los Angeles started a 15-day watering ban for a part of Los Angeles County. Natural resources being used and abused by us for years is now turning its back on us. But what can we do? We can't live without water, and we can't tell people not to drink, not to bathe, and not to have more babies. Even if we do try to enforce population control and not get into trouble with human rights groups, we can't unpopulate the overpopulated earth. You saw this. We saw this. But there's nothing much we can do as just one person. But how about Nostradamus? He saw this 500 years ago when the global population was around 500 million. Couldn't he have warned us? Yes, and Nostradamus did warn us. But even if we hear him loud and clear, and even if we do because everything he said will happen, there's still nothing much we can do. How long have we tried to reduce carbon emission? How much did we reduce? But should we give up trying? No. Let's look at what Nostradamus did say when we search the keyword drought. Actually, Nostradamus only mentioned drought 4 times, all in Century 3. The first one we find in Century 3, Quatrain 3, quote, Mars and Mercury and the silver joined together. Towards the south extreme drought. In the depths of Asia, one will say the earth trembles. Corinth. Ephesus, then in perplexity. Have you noticed the mention of quake? And didn't I just share with you that old Chinese saying? Mother Nature would bake it up before shaking it down. When I said how the 8/5/2022 6.8 quake in Sichuan was predicted all over the internet when Sichuan's temperature reached 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, here comes Nostradamus' prediction, and it actually already happened. Happened? Yes. Back in 2004. If you pull the solar map on December 26, 2004, you will find Earth, Mercury, Venus and Mars were all on the same side of the sun and almost formed a straight line. I don't know about astrology nor astronomy, but my web search helped me to find physics.gmu.edu in its record on 12/24, 25, 26, and 28 in 2004. And you can see how the 3 planets almost aligned in a straight line. And why I'm looking for 3 planets instead of 2. The silver must mean Venus, as it is pearl white in color. Now look at line 3. in the depths of Asia. Could this be a warning on the 2004 Indian Ocean quake and tsunami? 230,000 people died in the twin disasters. And now check line 2 and search for 2003 Indonesian drought. According to AlJazeera.com, West Java was hard hit and lost 15% of the province's rice fields. Although the drought affected all of Indonesia, Java, the southern part of Indonesia, was worst hit. And, as predicted in line 2, in the fourth line, an ancient Greece city's name and an ancient Turkey city name is mentioned, followed by the quote of perplexity, which left us in perplexity, as this is definitely about the Indian Ocean side tsunami of 2004. What does that have to do with Greece and Turkey? Is it a warning of a similar quake, tsunami, to occur near the Aegean Sea, next to Greece and Turkey? The second drought quatrain is found in Century 3, Quatrain 6, quote, "Within the closed temple the lightning will enter, the citizens within their fort injured. Horses, cattle, men, the wave will touch the wall. Through famine, drought, under the weakest armed." Although this was found through keyword drought, you probably also noticed the word famine. Of course, that is expected. But note the third line said wave to touch the wall. I think this means another tsunami will happen, especially when the word fort is used in line 2. Although you can find forts in many cities, it is often and almost always seen in ports. This obviously is a warning to citizens in port cities of incoming danger. This may be about 2011. March 11, Japan Sendai earthquake and tsunami. Because tsunami line 3 and the first line talked about closed temple. Sendai means the place God once was. So I drew the link. And Sendai is famous for Sendai beef. That's why cattle were mentioned. And Tohoku region, the epicenter, is considered Japan's agricultural center, with Japan's few horse parks and breeding facilities. No wonder why horses and cattle were mentioned. Japan's 311 quake in 2011 is actually 3 disasters in one. The 9.2 quake, the 14-meter tall tsunami, and the Fukushima nuclear disaster. And how did the nuclear power plant fail? When the wave hit the wall, as stated in line 3. Ooh. But how can we know this is about Japan? Well, Nostradamus used the weakest armed. Does that apply to Japan? Japan is quite advanced in everything and has tons of money for military spending, but it is not allowed to spend much. Many restrictions were put into its constitution, banning it to arm itself after its World War I and World War II aggression. It is not easy to explain in a few words. So Nostradamus kind of threw us a hint by saying weakest armed. But you may choose to argue on this being about the 2011 Japan quake, because there was no famine and no drought. Japan's economy was hit hard, but through printing money, few noticed. But if you use Google to translate the original French text, you'll find it should be translated as through hunger, thirst under the weakest arms. Other than a period right after the disaster and in the affected areas, few Japanese suffered hunger nor thirst. However, Nostradamus is telling us how people can't eat the nuclear contaminated food and water. Actually, the effect have lasted to this day, as Japan announced in April 2021 that it plans to discharge nuclear waste into the sea over the course of 2 years. Although it has not yet happened, on July 25, 2022, Japan's National Nuclear Regulator endorsed a plan to discharge more than 1 million tons of Fukushima wastewater into the ocean. I'm not a scientist, but I think Nostradamus is warning us against such a move. The next quatrain mentioning drought seems to warn us of another scary trend in a specific time. Now! We find in Century 3, Quatrain 19, quote, "In Luca it will come to rain blood and milk, shortly before a change of praetor. Great plague and war, famine and drought will be made visible, far away where their prince and rector will die." Lucca is in Italy. No rain so far of blood nor milk, but is that really what Nostradamus meant? If you search rain milk, you will find quite a few news articles. For example, on 2/13/15, LifeScience.com reported milk-colored rain in Washington state. It is actually rain with mud, although no one really knows where the dust is from. People believe it is caused by red dust suspended in the water or by the presence of microorganisms, or even sunspots and aurorae. Basically anything but supernature. But how can it not be about supernature when it is predicted by Nostradamus? Line 3 talked about our current time, as it mentioned great plague and war, famine and drought. Never in history after the 16th century, when we've had all these 4 major crises. And since line 2 stated, shortly before a change of praetor, he is telling us shortly after the plague, war, famine, and drought, there will be a change of praetor. Praetor is like the second in command in ancient Rome, so it is telling us to see big changes in government. Not just one, but I think many governments. Well, we already saw big changes in the UK, Germany, and Australia. Will we see a big change in the United States, Russia, and China? Line 2 talked about high-ranking official changes, while line 4 talked about even higher-ranking officials to die. Well, we already saw Japan's ex-prime minister assassinated. 5 days ago on September the 2, 2022, Argentina's vice president narrowly escaped when the gun aimed at her jammed. In June 2022, a California man tried to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh. Forbes reported ISIS plot to assassinate George Bush. And it has been over a year since Haiti's president assassinated in July 2021, and we still do not know who did it. It is telling us severe heat. Wildfires will turn the long-expected rain to polluted dust drops. Governments all over the world will have to be turned upside down, and many leaders will be attacked, while some will succeed, and all these will happen very soon. The fourth and last of the drought prophecy is found in Century 3, Quatrain 52, quote, "In Campania, there will be a very long rain. In Apulia, very great drought. The cock will see the eagle, its wing poorly finished. By the lion will it be put into extremity." Both Campania and Apulia are regions in Italy. Apulia is at the heel of the boot, while Campania is near Naples. They're only 2.5 hours apart by car, but one suffers rain and the other is dried up. Nostradamus is trying to tell us how weather could change our world and our lives. The third line's cock must be about France, while the eagle is the United States. It talks about the eagle's wing. And have you noticed how the US's Boeing has lost huge aircraft orders to France's Airbus, while the line is most likely the UK? The UK is always on the United States' side on international stage. But when it comes to buying airplanes, it normally buys whatever works best for them. Is this telling us some trade war between the UK, USA, and France? I don't think this has much to do with drought. But Nostradamus normally tries to tell us what he thinks we need to know. And sometimes all over the place. I hope that is not too much for you to digest. And I hope the decodings can help us see the future a little bit more clear. This is Ken Peters. Thank you for watching.